Hey there everyone, this is Michael Dougal, the Nootropic Reviewer, and in this video today I'm going to answer the question, should you discontinue the use of Vyvanse, which is a stimulant very similar to Adderall in the way that it works. Stimulants, what they do is they kind of help different receptors of the brain better work together, make you more aroused, make you more alert, make a lot of people productive, but the downside is that they have a lot of negative side effects that are accompanied with it. Some of those do include appetite suppression, insomnia. A lot of people notice that they are a little bit more resistant to social interactions because of the fact that they're so aroused that their judgment is a little bit impaired. And now, I've used Vyvanse for an extended period. I've also used Reconsider for a bit more time. I've never used Adderall because the Adderall side effects seem a lot more significant than with Vyvanse and with Reconsider. And I think that can be said about stimulants like Adderall and Vyvanse. Like, the stronger they are, the worse the side effects are going to be. I actually did enjoy using Ritalin because it seemed like the lightest one of the several options out there. I got the mood improvement. I didn't experience the appetite suppression, more so it didn't mess with my sleep. But one thing I did like about Vyvanse was the fact that I was a little bit more aroused, a little bit more stimulated. Why do people even use Vyvanse? Well, the major reason is going to be for ADHD uses, because the fact that people need a sustained attention in order for them to be more productive and enjoy a good quality level of well-being. But there's a major question around, like, what is ADHD and how do you even know if you're somebody that is a suitable fit for something like Vyvanse or like Adderall? Vyvanse actually works in like an extended release fashion, so you would ingest it once during the day and feel the benefits throughout the whole day. It may not hit you as fast as a stimulant like caffeine would. And I kind of like that aspect of it because it's a little bit smoother, it's a little bit more consistent in the way that you feel. Like, you'll typically know when you're going to crash during the day. From my experience in using Vyvanse, something that I really found interesting was the fact that I was very dehydrated when I took it. And it confused me in the sense, like, I didn't know if I was losing weight or if I was just shedding water weight. This is a very common phenomenon with Vyvanse, that people lose a lot of weight. One of my friends, for example, had lost about 50 pounds without even exercising as a result of using Vyvanse. And actually, people often use it to help them with binge eating disorders. So of course, there are healthier ways of losing weight, but Vyvanse is really going to suppress your appetite. And then at the same time, it does kind of interesting things with your body. Like with Reconsider, what I disliked about Reconsider versus Vyvanse, although both of them are very similar, with Reconsider, I was a lot more likely to eat unhealthy foods because I just eventually crashed. I couldn't even think anymore, and I would eat whatever was available to me. And also with Reconsider, I wasn't able to stay consistent with my fitness routine. Whereas with Vyvanse, I felt like I could prioritize my health, my exercise a little bit more, which made it such that Vyvanse, I didn't find myself as productive as I was with Reconsider. With the Reconsider, I actually did make a lot of money. I improved my grades significantly when I was in school, but at the same time, it ultimately did have negative side effects with it. For most individuals, after they ingest their Vyvanse, it takes about an hour for it to start working, and what that feels like is feeling like you're in a better mood, feeling a little bit more focused, wanting to be productive. You'll typically find yourself like wanting to always be behind screens, because screens, they're keeping you interested, they're always keeping you engaged. You don't really seem to get bored because there's like an endless amount of information that you can get from, say, scrolling or looking up things. And that's also a bad thing because it makes you want to like neglect conversations. How it feels is when you're using Vyvanse, often you will get so bored during conversations, you'll find that you're more of a talker and lesser of a listener, because you talking is something that you can pay attention to, but when people are talking to you, you'll notice like your thoughts are racing so fast that it becomes difficult to actually comprehend what they're saying, and you're more interested in just talking about what you want to talk about versus acknowledging what they're talking to you about and making a response accordingly. Other side effect that's often accompanied with it is irritability. So it's kind of like you're on the edge at all times, kind of like in that fight or flight state, that if somebody says something to you, you're more likely to make an impulse response, or you're a little bit more likely to make an impulse decision. For example, when I'm not using stimulants, I really like the fact that I feel like I have somewhat control over my emotions. I have control over my response. I'm able to stick to a schedule. Whereas if I'm using something like Vyvanse, I become a little bit more spontaneous in the way that I think, in the way that I make decisions. And this is one of those interesting things, whereas like Vyvanse is going to be highly variable between individuals. I think individuals that really experience like ADHD, maybe they have been diagnosed with it, they see better results with Vyvanse. They're able to stick with it long term. But there's a good portion of people that use Vyvanse not needing to be, and they ultimately end up crashing, or they experience really bad side effects and get off of it, and then they have to deal with having these withdrawal symptoms. Now, although with stimulants like these, what goes up does come down, I like the fact that with Vyvanse, I didn't find the withdrawals were anywhere as significant as something like Reconsider or like I would imagine Adderall being. With Reconsider, the withdrawals were absolutely horrible, and that's why I wouldn't personally touch Concerta again after using it for several months. The 2 weeks following discontinuing the use of Concerta, even at a small dosage of like 27 milligrams, I felt like I didn't want to talk to people. I was wanting to sleep more. I was speaking and remembering things a lot slower than I typically would. Whereas with Vyvanse, even after being on it for an extended period of time, after I'd come off of Vyvanse, I still felt like I was able to socially function. I didn't need to sleep for extended periods. But you have to be mindful of the fact, like, the longer you are to use a stimulant like this, the more negative the withdrawals are going to be. And for that reason, this may sound like an unorthodox approach, but something that I've learned from using substances like this is you may benefit actually by taking like 1 day off a week. Of course, follow the recommendations of whatever your general practitioner has told you, but a good practice could be something like weekdays off, weekends off, and then repeating it in that cycle. Because of the fact, like with stimulants like this, I don't personally see, or it's not been my experience, that there's any sort of buildup effect. Like you can say with some supplements out there, how they work is that you need to ingest them every single day, and then what happens is you kind of feel like this cumulative benefit. After about a week, you notice them working better. With Vyvanse, it's not been my experience that it's really like that. It's more like you would use it and you would expect to see the benefit that same day. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why Vyvanse is often abused. A lot of people do call it like the study pill because they may use it, for example, when they need to like cram in a lot of information. Let's say they're preparing for an exam, or they're doing something like they have a very intense day that they need to be very productive and they would use Vyvanse. I think there's better alternatives in those scenarios. Something like taking phenylpiracetam, which I've talked about in this video over here, is very effective. And I'm typically using phenylpiracetam once or twice a week. And I would always say that you're better off using Vyvanse like after 30 to even 60 minutes after waking up, because what happens is when you wake up, you experience a natural cortisol spike, and that spike is responsible for boosting energy and alertness throughout the course of the day. And if you were to use a stimulant, for example, upon waking up, what will happen is it'll actually blunt the natural cortisol spike that you would get. And with Vyvanse, one of my biggest complaints from using it was the dehydration effects. And it's super interesting. Like the first time I used Vyvanse, the day afterwards, I looked in the mirror, I was much leaner, I was vascular, I looked great. But then I figured this couldn't be healthy. It was kind of similar to alcohol in the way that it dehydrated me. Like, it's not as if I'm stepping on a bodybuilding stage and I need to really look at my best if it's going to sacrifice my health. And with Vyvanse, it definitely kind of felt that way. And learning that, I could see countless reports of people as well mentioning that Vyvanse was dehydrating them. And so for that reason, what you want to do is be drinking a lot more water than you're typically used to. I would be drinking at least 1 gallon a day and accompanying it occasionally with electrolytes. I like taking some sea salt with some water first thing in the morning, and that works well for me. And then, of course, knowing that Vyvanse is going to suppress your appetite, ensure that you're eating either like a few square meals a day, or if you're somebody that tracks your macros like myself, make sure that you're ingesting your calories, let's say if you have a specific feeding window. And one of the more common side effects with Vyvanse, including myself, would be an increase of anxiety. But anxiety is very vague. There's like different types of anxiety. For example, some people experience like social anxieties, whereas with some people it's like more worrying altogether. For my experience, I experienced maybe a little bit of social anxiety. I wouldn't worry as much, which was good. I would just be very fast-paced, wanting to get things done. But ultimately, with Vyvanse, I had learned that it was making me think I was being productive, but more so it was making me keep busy, but I wasn't doing the productive things that were actually moving things forward with my business. And that's because with Vyvanse, unfortunately, your judgment is just a little bit offset. You need some time off of stimulants, or that's my belief, because when you're off stimulants, you're able to daydream. You're able to experience some of the natural emotions that humans were supposed to experience. And when you're just so stimulated all the time, you don't have time to think, you don't have time to introspect, you don't have time to reflect, you're just moving forward. So of the very popular stimulant meds out there, of the ones that I would be comfortable taking, they would be Ritalin first, then Vyvanse, then Concerta, and then Adderall. I'd be curious to know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. A lot of people do actually see good results using something like Strattera, which is a little bit lighter, but it does actually help them to better sustain attention, interestingly enough. If you did get value from this video, make sure to subscribe, drop a like, and if you want to speak with me one-on-one, you can do so on Patreon, and make sure to visit our Discord server, which has a 24/7 chat room. We're answering questions in a time-sensitive fashion. I thank you for your interest in nootropics, and I look forward to seeing you next time.